a lot of people now are becoming sleep anxious
Mm.
because of a lot of podcasters, hopefully not you, and influential people who say you should get 8 hours of sleep, and then they only get 7, and then they'll try to make it 8 because they don't want to develop dementia, all sorts of scary things that people talk about. Um, so now they go to going to bed is now a performance. So they follow all the routines, they drink chamomile tea, they meditate, they do yoga, they will have a warm shower. By the time they go to bed, I need to sleep. They don't.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Neuroscience and Beyond podcast. I'm your host, Svillen, and together with my amazing team, we're on a mission to make science, especially neuroscience, more accessible and exciting for everyone. In this episode, I'm joined by Dr. Tony Fernando, a psychiatrist and sleep physician based in New Zealand, whose work bridges clinical science and practical insights from Buddhist philosophy. We explore the science of sleep, how the brain shifts between different states, why circadian rhythms matter, and what happens when they're disrupted. We also touch upon some practical approaches to insomnia and mental well-being. We then dive into his new book called Life Hacks from the Buddha, where he shares simple yet powerful insights on managing stress, overthinking, and finding calm in a chaotic world. Along the way, you will gain a deeper understanding of the connection between sleep and mental health and how ancient wisdom can offer surprisingly practical tools for modern life. If you enjoy the podcast, hit subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who loves science. And now, dear listeners, please enjoy the conversation with Dr. Tony Fernando. Hi, Dr. Tony Fernando. Welcome on our show.
Hello, good morning, good evening. I'm not sure what time it is in Germany.
Yeah, here it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and in your time zone it's 8 p.m.,
It's
right?
8 p.m. in New Zealand.
Yeah. Wow, you're in New Zealand now, but you are from the Philippines, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a small but meaningful community listening from the Philippines. I see them
Oh,
always. Yeah.
really, really.
Yes.
A few of them might come from my university. I,
Could
I, I
be.
studied at the University of the Philippines.
Yeah. Is it in Manila?
Yeah, and lots
Yes.
of
And
and a few neuroscientists there.
wow, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. What actually brought you? What motivated you to move to New Zealand from all the places in the world?
From the Philippines, I did my medical school there, and then I went to the US for my post-medical training. So I studied at one of the hospitals of Columbia University, and then I moved to University of Pennsylvania where I did my research and also my sleep training and psychiatry training. And then from the US, I got recruited to work as a psychiatrist here in New Zealand. And I initially planned to stay here just for a year to a little bit of a holiday and work, but fell in love with the place, and the health system here works much better than the US. Much better to be a doctor, I would say, in New Zealand because our system is socialized medicine. So it makes more sense as a doctor to work in a socialized medicine setting,
Yeah.
so all patients can see me.
That's true. That's true. I'm happy also that we in Germany, in Europe in general, we have also this kind of
Yeah,
this
good,
health
good,
health
good medical
system.
system. Yeah,
Exactly. Well, I hope the states will learn from this and maybe change their system. Who knows? Maybe not. I'm not
it
a
will
person
change.
in
It's
position.
going to
Yeah.
change because that's
Yeah.
part of the laws of the universe. As to
Let's hope
when, we
for
don't
that.
know.
Yeah. So we are going to have an awesome discussion ahead. You're a sleep doctor, psychiatrist, but you're also a practicing Buddhist. And we agreed
Yeah,
that we talk about, your work as a medical doctor in the first part of our podcast, and then we transition towards your book, which is going to be a little bit more philosophical, but similarly interesting to me personally, and I hope to the people who are listening to this podcast. Let's start by addressing sleep. You're the first doctor scientist with whom I talk about sleep, and this is probably one of the biggest enigmas in research in brain science. I mean, we spend 1/3 of the time in this condition with sleep, right? And we still don't fully understand what is going on, what is actually sleep. Can you
Yeah.
briefly guide us throughout the steps? How does our brain and body prepares us to sleep, and how do we actually fall asleep?
Yeah, so you're right. Sleep is one of those things that's still a huge enigma. And even up to me as a sleep physician, there's still a lot of unknowns. But one misconception about sleep is that sleep is when the brain switches off or shuts down. Big misconception. In fact, when you look at the brain, when it's asleep, it's very, very active. And you wouldn't even think that it's asleep if you look at how active the brain is. So I wouldn't consider sleep as switching off. I think a better way to describe it is it's just switching modes. So when we're awake, assuming we're awake now and we're not in a nightmare or something, you don't know, you might be in a nightmare. Um, when we're awake, the brain is focused externally, it's alert, it's processing stimuli everywhere, looking at memories, reviewing things. Very, very active, but it's aimed towards the outside. And then when we sleep, it switches modes from being externally focused to internally focused. So it's still very busy when you look at the brain waves. So the brain shifts to uh, restoration, memory processing, emotional regulation. So the networks involved while it's awake will shift gears and will be working on a different mode when it's asleep. So it's like a reorganizing activity versus a shutdown. It looks like a shutdown from the outside, but it's very busy.
Yeah, yeah. And we have these phases called
Yes,
non-REM sleep, rapid eye movements, or non-rapid eye, and the rapid eye movement, which are kind of interchanging and goes in
cycling. They're
cycle.
constantly
Yeah.
cycling. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, um, assuming we're awake at the moment and conscious, and then we decide to go to sleep, assuming we are a normal sleeper, we will shift into a light sleep. So light sleep is when in superficial light sleep, there's still some sense of what's going on outside. I describe that as one foot is still outside and one foot is already going to sleep. And then it goes into deeper sleep. That's when the brain apparently is achieving its restoration. So deep sleep makes us feel refreshed. And then after deep sleep, it cycles into REM or rapid eye movement. That's when our eyes are actually fluttering. And that's when dreams also occur. And one whole cycle from light sleep to deep sleep to rapid eye movement roughly is around 60 to 90 minutes. And then we cycle back down to light sleep, deep sleep, REM. So it goes on the whole night. And depending on the duration of each cycle, we will have what's this 60 to 90 minutes, and towards the end, before waking up, a few hours before waking up, the sleep becomes more superficial. There's less deep sleep, there's more rapid eye movement. So it's constantly cycling. constantly
Yeah.
cycling.
Yeah. You mentioned something very important. If you're a normal sleeper, if you sleep normally. So let's go into this. First, maybe it's interesting to look into or ask you like, is sleep pattern the same for everybody? You know, we have babies, infants, teenagers, for example, and adults. Do they have same sleep pattern or does it differ?
Yeah, very different. Um, so I talked about the sleep stages being unstable, not unstable, but constantly changing while we're asleep. But our sleep patterns are also changing from a neonate or an infant, baby, the first few months. Sleep is very fragmented. There's no clear day or night pattern. And then around 3 to 6 months, the body clock or circadian rhythm starts to form, and that's when parents are able to sleep now, because now kids are sort of having breaks for sleep. And then 6 to 12 months, pattern becomes more clear. There's less awakenings and parents are sleeping. Oh wow, that's nice. And then teenagers, also different. Teenagers, there's a change in teenagers' body clocks. So they sleep deep, but their body clock also shifts. So a lot of teenagers are what you call night owls. And they do that unconsciously. Parents think it's being deliberate. They're doing this to annoy us. No, no. It's just a normal shift in the body clock. And then adults sleeps different from younger people. Our rhythms are more clear. But of course, it can be influenced by lifestyle. And then older adults also have a deterioration in their sleep. Their duration tends to be less, and it's more fragmented. So there's more issues. When we grow older, it's not just the body changing, but also our sleep.
It's interesting that, you know, at the beginning it's fragmented and then towards the end it again gets fragmented. You know, it's kind of a cycle that repeats
It's,
itself.
it's a cycle of life.
Yeah. You mentioned something important called clock of the body, circadian rhythm. Can you maybe elaborate on this concept?
Yeah, so circadian rhythm, from the term itself, means around a day. Um, we have our daily patterns, and this is, as a scientist, it's fascinating to realize that it's not just humans and animals who have body clocks. So if you have pets, you would know they have a body clock. But plants have body clocks. Even unicellular organisms have body clocks. All of us, all creatures, are highly influenced by the sun and the lack of sun. So we have our cycling. So we have a body clock. Well, it's controversial now. We used to think it's just in the brain, but the master clock is deep in the brain, in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And the master clock is roughly, so I'm not a basic scientist, so please forgive me if I make mistakes, but I think about 10,000 cells or 10,000 neurons around the size of a pinhead is our master clock. However, distributed in other parts of the body are actually other clocks. We used to think it's just in the brain. And this clock, the body clock, determines so many things. Of course, the obvious one would be when we're awake, when we're sleepy. That's a body clock manifestation. But uh, the body clock also influences our mood, our emotions, our immune system, our biological functions, when we need to poo, uh, when we feel full, when we feel energetic, when we feel like it's best to compete, when we feel energy. So influences a lot of even our cognitive capacity. So some people feel the brightest and smartest in the morning. So I'm like that. I'm a morning person. Um, I naturally wake up before 5, around 5 a.m., and then I'm training. I do swim training at 6 a few times a week. But even if I'm not doing that, I'm naturally awake by 5. And if you want me to sit an exam, I wouldn't mind sitting an exam at 7, 8 a.m. That's when my brain is most creative. But don't ask me to sit an exam in the evening. Whereas some people whose body clocks are different would be at their best at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., but ask them to sit an exam at 7 in the morning, they're dead. So we have
Yeah,
different body clocks as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We call this
Yeah,
chronotypes.
chronotypes. Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned you're kind of this early bird, if you wish,
I'm a
and
morning,
then
yeah, yeah.
you have the night owls, and what are the, health implications, for example, when you, how to say that, when you try to not perturb per se, but as you said, sometimes night owls they are required to do tasks in the morning, and people who like to get up early in the morning or who are like you, they have to do things in the evening for their job, for example, like daily routines. What are these? Is there any like health um,
Implications
effect
for not following your
implications?
clock.
Exactly. Is there anything
Yes,
like this? Yeah.
yes. Unfortunately, yes. Um, so it becomes problematic when people do shift work.
Mm.
Assuming you have a regular clock, meaning someone who wakes up 6, 7 in the morning and feels sleepy 10, 11 or so at night, let's assume that's the average clock. If you ask that average person to do night shifts meaning working from 10 a.m. till 6 a.m., um, it's actually very hard on the system.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically forcing your biology to go against what it's wired for. Lots of implications if it's happening long term, medium to long term. Some people actually develop sleep disorders. We call it shift work sleep disorders. In fact, if you I'm not sure if you'll edit this out, but I like calling shift work without an F
Mm. 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 Okay.
because it's really not good for the body.
Mm-hmm.
There are potential mood and psychiatric implications if it goes on long term and a patient or a person just isn't able to adjust. Definite immune system implications. And of course, functional implications. There are higher rates of accidents
Yeah.
if you're working at a time that's not consistent with your body clock.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
However, if you're an evening person and you're doing night shift, then it's fantastic. So similarly, if you are an evening person, or particularly if you're an owl, and you work in this 9 to 5 society, which expects everyone to have a 9 to 5 clock, it has huge implications. So I treat a lot of patients who are owls and are forced to work and live and study in a 9 to 5 society. It's disastrous for them. But we have interventions, we have ways to make it easier for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Before we go into that, is there actually an option, or is it possible to, instead of having these negative implications when you change your lifestyle, but to reverse your biological clock and get used to this new kind of night shift or morning routines?
Yeah. Um, as far as I know, so I'm pleading ignorance on this. I'm not sure if we do have ways now to shift it. As far as I know, we can't.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
quite
that's
set.
good. Yeah.
It's quite set. Um, there's a room to wiggle around. So in fact, you can modify your clock a little bit, but not massively. Not
Mm.
massively.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. I mean, one of the big harsh modification, if you wish, bad modification is this jet lag. I experienced recently, a couple of months ago, I was in San Diego in West Coast states, and this is, I don't know how many hours difference, 10, 11 or something like this. And for 3 4 days I just was super drowsy around 5 p.m. and then I woke up every day at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning. This was terrible experience. I don't know,
You
is
should
there
have talked to me
anything
before
to.
that.
Yeah, I wish I knew you before. What advice do you give to people to kind of avoid this or mitigate the effect of this kind of jet lag?
Yeah, so there are actually a lot of interventions, okay? Some people even suggest starting to adjust your body clock or your routines a few days before the trip, but I don't do that. I don't recommend that because it gets confusing, and if you get it wrong, it can actually backfire. So I don't do the future planning like, oh, by now I should go to bed at this time. Like, it's too confusing. So the general recommendations are simple. Um, when you arrive in the new place, try to assume the time of the place as soon as possible. Meaning, if you come from Europe, you go to the States and you arrive there at, let's say, 7 in the morning, West Coast time, but your body clock is 7 p.m. I actually forgot the time zone difference. So even though your body clock says 7 p.m., but it's 7 a.m. in the West Coast, try to pretend it's 7 a.m., meaning do all your 7 a.m. activities. However, the most important is bright light exposure. So the moment you're in the new place, in the morning, have as much sun hitting your face without sunglasses. You don't stare at the sun. I have to say that to people because they say, Tony, it was painful. You do not have to look at the sun. But the sun exposure in the morning tells your brain, even though it's 7 p.m., it tells your brain it's morning. Wake up. Wake up. So sun exposure is critical. And then doing activities that stimulate you. And then closer to your usual bedtime, let's say you're feeling you go to bed at night in the new place, but you're very wide awake because it's daytime in your homeland. It actually helps to take melatonin.
Mm.
So melatonin in the US is over the counter. In some countries it's prescription. But melatonin has to be timed, usually an hour or so before your target bedtime. That's when you take melatonin. And also avoiding bright light exposure in the evening because you want to tell your brain it's evening, it's evening. So those
Mm-hmm.
are some of the techniques. However, it's probably worth mentioning that we do have devices nowadays, bright light therapy glasses. It's actually in my office a few steps here. Later I can get it if you want. But you put it on. It looks like very space agey, and we use that to help modify the body clock. So people will
Mm-hmm.
use it in the morning, or if they want to be awake at night doing shift work, they will use that, and it keeps them um, a blast of like a wake up call. It's
Yeah.
come on, wake up.
Yeah. Very interesting. What about you're saying sunlight, but when, for example, let's assume the weather is cloudy wherever you go,
Mhm.
is the sunlight sufficient to keep you kind of
Yes.
awake? Yeah.
Depending on the season, um, but I'll be honest, the last time I checked this was probably more than 10 years ago. But when I checked 10 years ago, um, the data shows that we still get enough bright light even if it's cloudy in the morning. My guess is we're still getting more than 10,000 lux, LUX of light, even if it's cloudy. But probably depends on what cloudy means. Cloudy probably in the UK is different from cloudy in New Zealand.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess yeah, it's very
And
different, I
depending on the
guess.
season.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And here in Göttingen it's really like I don't know, out of the whole year maybe 300 days of clouds and it's really not particularly yeah, happy weather. Let's put it
Yeah,
that
that's
way.
why. And this, I mean, we joke about it, but it has huge health implications.
Mhm.
Um, like winter depression or seasonal affective disorder. That's why using these devices, bright light therapy devices, can be lifesavers, literally lifesavers.
That's very interesting. I've never heard of these, but maybe I will educate
Yeah.
myself on this. I'm blessed to have fairly okay sleep. I'm one of those people that go until around 11 p.m. to sleep,
Hmm.
wake up 6, 7, something like this. 7.5 hours for me is perfect. But my problem is that I'm a very light sleeper.
Hmm.
You know, now with the coming of the spring, I hear the birds, singing outside, and then I am awake at 5:30 in the morning, and this is very strange. Is there, apart from these earplugs, anything that I can do to, maybe train my body, my brain to become less light sleeper, for example?
Well, I'm not sure if technically that means light sleep. It probably means that your brain is just naturally getting up inconsistent with seasonal changes. Yeah, but in terms of training the brain to have deeper sleeps, I'm not sure if it will work for you because what you're describing sounds natural.
Hmm.
Um, but for people who have really fragmented or poor quality sleep, there are a lot of protocols we use, and many do not involve medications. And these are ways to help people with poor sleep, like insomnia or severely fragmented sleep, to sleep deeper. But I have to qualify, though, that waking up in the middle of the night or waking up early to hear the birds is not necessarily a problem or
Mm-hmm.
an illness. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, most, if not, I can't say, of course, all, but uh, majority of adults actually wake up multiple times during the night. Many of times, not full consciousness. Sometimes full consciousness for a few minutes here and there, and it's actually not considered a problem. And the way you're describing yours is probably you're just in the tail end of your sleep cycle where sleep is more superficial, and then before your awakening in the morning, and that's when you start, your brain is now partially becoming alert. So I
Mm-hmm.
won't consider it necessarily something to treat unless it has functional consequences,
Mm.
meaning because of it you're actually more tired, you can't function as much. But otherwise, if your functioning is fine overall, I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I probably gave the wrong example. I referred to myself as light sleeper. I used to live with roommates, and in the middle of the night, I remember one of my roommate, he was like wandering around for some reason, and very often I woke up when he opened his door. Even he's like far away, it's like so crazy. I don't know how this works, but it's like immediately I'm okay, there is something happening. And sometimes I really experience things like that. Sometimes I don't know what is going on. Super deep sleep, yeah, but it doesn't matter. These are personal things. I don't even know why I'm discussing this on the podcast.
I have that effect on people, Phil.
Yeah. No, maybe it's good to give also personal perspective to the
Yeah,
listeners,
yeah, yeah.
to get
Makes
them.
it more
Uh,
interesting and
exactly, exactly,
relatable.
exactly. Exactly, that is correct. That is correct. You mentioned insomnia. You are one of the I don't know first certified doctor in Australia for treatment in insomnia. I think this was one of your bio information.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm wrong with this, but maybe for people who have this kind of condition, what would you advise them in terms of behavioral like therapy? Treatment with drugs, everybody knows, etc. But what is your take on some kind of behavioral
yeah.
adjustments? Yeah.
So the good news is for many people with insomnia, um, there can be improvement without medications.
Mm.
But first, we have to define what insomnia is.
Yeah, yeah.
So, insomnia is poor quality sleep, difficulty falling asleep, difficulty with maintaining sleep because sleep is fragmented massively. It's not like waking up occasionally, it's just they're just awake for 20, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. So, there's fragmented sleep plus, so there has to be a plus functional deficits the following day.
Mm. Mm.
So when people have broken sleep once in a while, it's not insomnia. Okay. But for people with insomnia, there are all sorts of possible reasons. It can be depression, it can be stress, it can be all sorts of things. But the treatment principles are similar. And one of the most important treatments is what we call cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And nowadays, you can easily ask AI to describe it. However, I mean, there are also an excellent app. I wouldn't say, sorry, I have to qualify, not excellent. It's a good app called CBTI Coach, I think. Let me just, I think it's, that's, yeah, I think it's CBTI Coach. It's a free app from the US government, actually, for designed for their veterans. I think that's the name of the app. Very helpful. But in terms of what we ask patients to do, I'll give you the gist because it has a few layers. But the gist is for many people with insomnia, for example, they're only getting a total of 6 hours of sleep that's broken, whereas normally before the insomnia they will get 8. Okay, so there's a 2 hour difference. A lot of them, what they end up doing because they have insomnia is they stay in bed longer, hoping to catch more sleep, which then worsens everything.
Wow.
So, what we do, which is counterintuitive and works in 60 to 70% of cases, is we will ask people with insomnia to compress their time in bed. Again, it's counterintuitive because the intuition is I have insomnia, I should stay longer. But what that
Mm-hmm.
does, sleep becomes more fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
So we ask them to stay in bed shorter. We calculate it. For example, if they only get 6 hours in total, but they go to bed at 8 p.m. and get out of bed at 6. So that's how many hours? That's 10 hours. No, sorry. How many hours is that? Yeah, 10
Yeah,
hours in
yeah,
bed.
10 hours. Mm-hmm.
So what, and they only get 6 hours. They actually only get a 60% efficiency in terms of they only get 6 hours in bed, 6 hours of sleep, 10 hours in bed. We calculate that 60% sleep efficiency. The usual goal is about 80-85%. So what we ask our patients to do is for, let's say, a month, 3 to 4 weeks, we ask them if it's okay with them to compress their time in bed. And I'll tell them, so you're only getting 6 hours of sleep and it's broken. Why not aim for 6 hours but hopefully less broken? And oh, how can I do that? It doesn't make sense, but I'll ask you to compress your time in bed. Go to bed a little later if that suits you. Is 10 or 11 okay? And they'll say, a lot of them say, okay, I can push till 11. And that means if they go to bed at 11, they have to get out of bed at 5. So we try to get the 6 hours. And it's horrible for the first week. Horrible. But when it works around week 3 or week 4. And their sleep tends to be improved. And it's a paradox to them. It makes sense to me. I don't need to explain the whole science to it. But they'll say, this is bizarre, Tony. I'm sleeping better. I'm spending less time in bed. So that's one really important treatment. The other treatment is more relevant to our current day and age. A lot of people now are becoming sleep anxious because of a lot of podcasters, hopefully not you, and influential people who say you should get 8 hours of sleep, and then they only get 7, and then they'll try to make it 8 because they don't want to develop dementia, all sorts of scary things that people talk about. So now they go to sleep. Going to bed is now a performance. So they follow all the routines, they drink chamomile tea, they meditate, they do yoga, they will have a warm shower. By the time they go to bed, I need to sleep. They don't. Sorry, I'm laughing, but it's horrible. So learning how to be relaxed about sleep is actually crucial.
I mean, not only about sleep, about many other things, right? We can
About
touch upon a
life.
little bit
And we
later.
can talk
Yes.
about that later.
Yes. Coming soon in the following minutes. I share a very similar understanding of life. And at the end of the day, if you compare the life of the universe with our life, we're just insignificant blink of an
Yeah.
eye here and then.
We're just a tiny dot.
Yes.
However, when it's our life, the brain makes us think, for a purpose, of course, for survival, that it's the most important problem in the universe.
Yes, that is totally correct. You mentioned when you start talking about insomnia, that the app developed by the US government is to help veterans, right? So I'm reading this book. Of course, I conveniently forgot the title, but it's about stress in our life. And in this book is very nicely laid out the history of PTSD research, post-traumatic stress disorder. And can you maybe elaborate if there is any connection between our psyche and our sleep quality, for example?
Massive connection. So our state of mind highly influences our quality of sleep. And people probably who are listening to you or watching this will know this, that if they're stressed, if they have an early flight to catch, if they have an exam the following day, most often sleep is not the best. Why? Because if the organism senses threat, the natural tendency of the organism is to be alert and to protect oneself. So it's normal that when the brain or the organism, the mind, is not feeling relaxed, is feeling traumatized, if it's feeling anxious, experiencing a lot of pain, physical or mental, sleep naturally gets affected. It's and I see that a lot as a, of course, as a medical doctor, but especially as a psychiatrist. That for me, one way for me to gauge if a patient is improving, apart from asking them how they are and looking at how functional they are, is to look at their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Often will tell me if things are actually on the mend.
Yeah.
For me, it's a barometer of wellness.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. Nicely put into. Yeah. What do you think about, by the way, these sleep gadgets? I have this watch that I'm wearing, and I do sports, and for some time I started tracking my sleep, and I'm like, okay, I have now good sleep, and very often it's actually correlating. I feel good and refreshed, and I see, okay, it says, well, I'm refreshed. And sometimes when especially, I mean, I haven't done this for a while now, but let's say I go somewhere and I have 2 glasses of wine, and then I sleep, and in the morning you think you slept 8 hours, but in reality, your body did not recover just because of this kind of effect of alcohol, even though
Yes.
1 or 2 glasses of wine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot the question.
What do you think about what do you think about these gadgets that
Oh, the
you know?
wearables.
Yes,
Um, I have mixed feelings
yeah.
towards them. I wear one. Well, it's charging at the moment. Um, it depends on how it's being used. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, wearables at the moment, they're good enough in terms of estimating our sleep, how much sleep we get, and how fragmented it is. Good enough, but not 100% good. Depending on the study, I think it's about 80% correlation with what we call a proper sleep study, where you have electrodes
Mm-hmm.
looking at proper sleep. 80% is definitely better than recall. Like if you ask someone, how's your sleep? Or looking at sleep diaries would be 70% correlation, I think. But recall is much, much worse.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
how was your
Yeah,
sleep 3 days ago?
yeah. Of course.
Probably 5% correlation.
Yeah.
I don't know. So they have a purpose. However, a lot of these wearables at the moment are not really accurate when it comes to sleep depth.
Mm-hmm.
How deep is it? It cannot really measure it without electrodes.
Mm-hmm.
However, it has an algorithm that gives us a metric. So it's not that great at the moment. And again, I can be wrong. I'm not a techie, but that's what I remember. So it also backfires, particularly for people who are the controlling types, who
Yeah,
like to control the variables of their lives.
yeah.
Um, and these are the people who end up seeing me. Many of them, both for sleep advice, but also in terms of how to grasp less in life.
Mm.
Um, what tends to happen is some people now become a slave of what the watch tells them. So even though they technically slept well, um, but the watch says, no, you didn't, it will actually affect how they feel. There has been research on this that the perception, even though it's wrong or inaccurate, of how our sleep was, influences how we function the following day. That's how powerful our perception is. So I wouldn't focus too much on what the watch tells me in terms of body battery. Have you been I wouldn't I will focus on, are you able to function? Are you able to do most of the things you want to do in terms of physical or energy expenditure? Are you? And for me, that's good enough. But people say, oh, but according to my watch, I'm only 70% refreshed. Okay, let's forget about your watch at the moment. How are you overall? Oh, I'm okay. But my watch says, okay. So that's when how we relate to the watch becomes a problem.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree to this. And it's a nice metric, nice thing to have, but still you have to feel your body. And I think in general we tend to, as a human race, if you want, human species, we go into this direction of developing so many technologies and using them to help us understand our nature, but this is not working, and we kind of forgot about our nature, which is connected to everything else around. And it's very strange and paradoxical, in my opinion. Yeah. Well, I think this is a great moment now to transition to your very interesting book, which is standing quietly here. It's called Life Hacks from the Buddha: How to Be Calm and Content in a Chaotic World. So it's a very nice, easy to read, fun book where you share your experiences, your personal life, and you also try to give some tips about some practical applications of Buddhism, how you understand it, and you outline, you call it like 50 plus one, right? Hacks that you give to people. And I'd like to briefly touch upon some of the life hacks. But before that, let's talk about Buddha and how you end up being practicing Buddhist. Sorry. For people who don't know, right, they think like Buddhist is kind of a religion and this is some kind of a religious person or something. And I understand it more as a philosophy of life.
Mm-hmm.
And this personality was actually really historical, true person living there and having these insights, etc. Can you tell us more about who Buddha was?
So I have a disclaimer here. I'm not a
Yeah,
Buddhist scholar, so my
yeah.
knowledge would be relatively superficial. The Buddha is a historical person. So he lived 2,600 years ago, came from a, if I'm not mistaken, wealthy or wealthy family, but they might also be a ruling family. So he was quite he lived in luxury and I'm not sure if this is legend or fact or historical, but apparently his parents or his father wanted to make sure he didn't suffer. So he was given all the luxuries in life, but eventually, with his wisdom, he realized, this is not life. Became a wanderer, trying to look for, what it is to be human or what causes us suffering. How can we really experience peace and joy? He became a wandering beggar and an ascetic. An ascetic are they're people who would go into extreme meditations and practices to deprive the body so that the mind becomes fully enlightened. And he learned a lot of techniques and skills from this really wise group of people, but it wasn't enough. And he actually ended up doing his own practice of discovery. He meditated a lot. And that's when he found out about, okay, this is actually why we suffer as humans. And these are ways to decrease suffering. So some people call it awakening, some people call it enlightenment. For me, I mean, how will I view it? It's a period of just clarity of the
Mhm.
mind. Because the mind's interesting. You're a neuroscientist. The mind is actually not that accurate. The mind is there, the brain is there to help us survive. The brain is not there to give us reality.
Mhm.
whatever objective reality. All our realities are subjective. But we have this to survive. But the downside to a brain that aims to survive, which means to accumulate, to build oneself up, to have a big sense of who I am. I mean, they're important for survival, to subjugate, to get resources. I mean, they're helpful for survival, but they cause a lot of problems in terms of our own peace and also the peace of everyone around us. And you can
Mm.
see that now. One group trying to survive because you're attacking us. No, boom. It's for survival, but it causes a lot of chaos internally and also with others. And the Buddha was quite good in coming up with very specific teachings. So he didn't say, love one another. No, he didn't say that. He actually gave practices how we can actually develop this high level of empathy and compassion. Not from a superior being telling us, Tony, you should be kind and compassionate. No, there are practices, mental practices. There are mental practices on how to manage overthinking. Huge problem.
Mm.
Specific techniques. You guys overthink, and because of that, you suffer. And these are different techniques. Boom, boom, boom. So for me, as a psychiatrist, encountering the teachings of the Buddha I grew up Catholic and never been interested at all in philosophy and Buddhism. I'm like, that's weird. Like, why will I get interested in that? The Western civilization and philosophy and religions are far more interesting than Eastern. That's what I thought until I read the book by the Dalai Lama and a psychiatrist. His name is Howard Cutler, and it's a best-selling book, and that book changed my life. It's called The Art of Happiness, and it was a simplified version of some of the key teachings of the Buddha about the mind. And for me, when I read that, I it shook me in that how come I didn't know this? I'm a psychiatrist. Someone should have taught me this because reading that for me was more significant than a lot of the psychology, psychiatry books I've learned. I probably have to be careful saying this, but for me, the teachings of the Buddha far, far more superior than the teachings of Freud.
Mm.
Freud
Very
is
interesting.
extremely smart, but his knowledge is very limited and a little warped in some aspects. But the Buddha's teachings are just, well, not all. Some of his teachings I really cannot understand. But many of his teachings about the mind are just so clear. So for me, that's the attraction. It's not religious about a God or saving myself or protecting myself from what will happen in the afterlife. No, it was, gosh, this guy is a super smart psychologist. I mean, he's so smart. Sorry, I'm monopolizing this, but in some of his insights, he was able to describe what happens to the mind in milliseconds. He described that. For example, he talked about why we get upset or why we become happy. He talks about we have a background, which is our autobiography, our conditioning, and then we have the senses, and the mind is considered a sense. There's a stimulus, for example, an email from your boss, the stimulus, and then that causes a feeling tone, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, and there's a perception. Oh my gosh, my boss is angry at me. And because of that, it creates this cascade of internal events which leads to suffering.
Hmm.
He was able to describe like an action potential of the mind
Yeah.
just by investigating his own experience. Sorry, I sound like a fanatic, but I'm just amazed by his level of knowledge of the mind. So I'll shut up now. I'll let you ask
No, no, no.
questions.
I don't think you sound as a fanatic. I think you sound very inspiring.
I'm
You know,
I'm in awe.
yeah,
I'm in awe up to
it's
now.
very very nice to see your energy. You know, this means that you
Yeah.
really truly believe this, and it truly changed your life. And
Yeah, I'm actually I have to be careful about the word believe.
yeah,
I
okay.
don't because I don't think it's a belief. It's I've experienced it. Like a lot of what he talks about, I've seen it happen in me. So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Believe is I'm allergic to the word belief because I grew up as a Catholic where belief is you have to do this.
I see, I see. It's even better when you devote yourself to you know these practices and yeah tricks if you want and way of life. Then you in fact you experience it, you live it actually, and you understand it even better. The teaching and the processes, and that's very interesting. What was this the moment when you read the book that you mentioned, which kind of motivated you to become a Buddhist, or was it
Uh,
something else?
it's in fact the even to be called a Buddhist sometimes gives me the creeps. Um,
Okay, sorry about
no,
that.
no, 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 don't say sorry because I became a Buddhist monk eventually.
Yeah, yeah.
I ordained in Burma, but part of me probably it's my conditioning as a Catholic that if I'm not a Catholic, I'll go to hell. So I still have this allergy
Yeah, yeah.
to being called a Buddhist. But it's interesting. The term Buddhist is interesting because it was only coined in the 18th century, I think. And some Buddhists don't like to be called Buddhists because if I'm called a Buddhist, in a way, it's separating me from non-Buddhists. When in fact, one of the things we train for, so Buddhism is not faith, it's constant practice and training. One of the things we train in is to see ourselves as exactly the same as everyone else, including animals, in that all of us just want a fair go. All of us just want to live with ease. All of us just want to avoid suffering and pain and loss. Um, so the term Buddhist, I can understand it's a way to classify, but in a way it can be seen by the mind as a division, which causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, yeah. But that's very interesting to think about it. And that is also one plus point, if you wish, for the teaching. When you compare it to other religions who say, okay, this is the one, we are the best and we are the chosen one, so the rest is, you know, have to obey or whatever and burn in hell.
Or
And
to
I
die.
don't know. Yeah,
The
to die,
scary
even
bit is,
worse. Yeah.
yeah, you don't join us, you die.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how are we in 21st century given all the knowledge and history and whatever collective human knowledge, and we still kind of, you know, believe these things, which for me is a little bit disturbing, but well, who am I to judge
Well,
anybody? And why should I, you know?
no, it's a good question. But my answer to that, my humble answer, I'm not a philosopher, is that because our wiring hasn't changed.
Mm,
2,600 years later, the teachings of the Buddha about the mind and why we suffer and why we also feel joy and peace, we still have the same wiring. So we have developed at a very advanced level our external surroundings. You know, we can fly to the moon, We fly. We've developed objects that fly and kill other people. We have drones. I mean, the Buddha would have been amazed at that, but he would have wondered, how will that help you with your happiness?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Wow.
so the in at least if you follow the teachings of the Buddha or other similar people, the goal is, yeah, develop your external stuff, but the most important thing is actually to look into your mind and see if you can develop that. And humans in general have not done massive developments of the mind in 2,600 years. Yeah, it's not a very sexy option. It requires a lot of work, minimal outside gain. You won't become rich. In fact, you can become poor, but
Yeah,
happy.
yeah. Yeah, I really totally align with your way of thinking that yes, technological progress is basically has this exponential growth for the last 2,600 years, and our mind is like wandering at the same level. Nothing has changed. The same basic instincts are driving us: power, sexual reproduction, greed, love to
Accumulation, yep.
others, accumulation. Yes, and this is kind of strange, and it's sad. It's sad, but well, this is the world we live in, and we have to accept it and, well, try to develop ourselves, right? And our
Yeah.
communities. Yeah, yeah,
But it
yeah.
was the same during the Buddha's time.
Yeah, yeah, I
Ex-
guess.
Except that the level of, like what you mentioned, the level of development we've had now has reached the point that it will be easy to annihilate large groups of people, which was not possible during the Buddha's time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Unfortunately,
the
this is
sad part.
possible now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, let's hope that this is not going to take place soon, maybe in some distant future. Given the certain, current situation is hard to believe.
It's a
Yeah,
worry.
let's not go there. But yeah,
Let's talk about the
it's
Buddha.
yes. Let's go back to the book and let's talk about the hacks. Now, I wrote down some of them here.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there are a lot that I liked, but someone particularly I really found very interesting. I will start with hack number 4. Right. Many of our thoughts are like soap bubbles. They're empty. Do not grasp on them. As a person who tends to overthink, this is particularly important to me. Can you elaborate on that one?
Yeah, that description actually came from the Buddha. Again, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not a Buddhist scholar, but if I think it came from actual teachings of the Buddha that thoughts are soap bubbles. They form, boom, boop. And we don't have to be philosophical about it. If you observe your thoughts, when you it's hard to observe your thoughts if our minds are very busy. But if we can do a brief exercise, just breathe in, breathe out, only if you want to do it. Because paying attention to the breath in a way calms the mind. And then we watch the mind. When you have thoughts or urges, they come up. And if you don't pay attention to them, they wither away. And unfortunately, many of us think that what we think is the most important thing and is accurate, which is actually totally false. If you look at it from a scientist, log all the thoughts you have. Okay, I'm sure you'll have a massive spreadsheet, massive data set. How many of them are actually accurate and true? I don't want to say that the mind lies, because lying, there's sometimes an intention to deceive. Inaccurate is the right word. They're often inaccurate. Like if you wake up and then, who was that? Oh, it was an intruder. Oh no, it was just the cat. So I'm not saying that everything is inaccurate, but I would venture to say majority of our thoughts are inaccurate. But many of us would put our thoughts as the most important thing, and then we have a lot of self-righteousness. This is true. And then we will kill for this thought. We will give up friends for this thought because my thoughts are that this party should win. You belong to the other party. We now unfriend each other. We grasp thoughts. We grasp philosophies. We grasp movements. When in fact, many of them, if not, actually not many, all of them will change. Even Buddhism has changed. And it's possible that in so many years, Buddhism will not be around. And that's okay. But when we grasp at thoughts, ideas, images, or our sense of self, we kill for this. Or it can be the reverse. Sometimes we grasp thoughts that are so unhealthy. Like, you're shit. You're a nobody. You're an imposter. No one loves you. These are thoughts. But if you view thoughts as just random neurochemical impulses that has a little bit of a story, wow, fascinating. Fascinating. Yeah, that one's interesting. That's still a thought. And that's what you develop with meditation. When we meditate, and it's true that a lot of, I'm not sure if your listeners or people who watch you meditate, but a lot of people have this misconception that meditation is quieting the mind. There are no thoughts. Believe me, that's the opposite. When you try to meditate, especially in the beginning, you realize, oh my God, there are so many thoughts.
Yeah,
And
I've
many
experienced
of
that.
them are inaccurate. But
Yeah,
we grasp and we
yeah, that
fight and we
that's
kill.
that is so true, and we have to learn, let go. It's not important. Continue your
In fact,
life.
yeah, you mentioned let go. Let go is hard, Svilin.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if we grasp at thoughts, instead of letting go, because it's hard to let go, it's just open your hands lightly and say, well, this is a thought. Interesting. Might be true, but there are a lot of variables in this equation that I don't know about. So you're not giving it up, but at least you're open to the possibility that it might not be 100% accurate, or that it might change, or it might be false. And it's okay. So it's from grasping to hold it lightly. And if you let go, that's great. That's a little advanced.
I just want to make a small side note to our listeners, especially the ones on YouTube. We had a small hiccup with our internet connection, so we had to reschedule this part. Therefore, we have a little bit changed outfit, and our faces might look different, but we're the same people, so no problem. We start where we left off, and I will continue asking you about the hacks that you wrote in the book. And the next one that I'd like to discuss is hack number 6. It is the following: train your mind to acknowledge that your reality is just one of 8 billion other realities. This is incredible life hack. I love it. Please elaborate.
I mean, as a neuroscientist, you would understand this, that our reality, so my reality, which is at the moment, my reality is composed of my 5 senses and input coming in, plus the mind and input coming in and processing. So basically, that's my reality. It's my subjective lived reality. And because my senses and my mind is specific to me, with my background, with my conditioning, with my past trauma, I'm not saying I had trauma, but all the events that's happened to me, how I perceive reality will be totally different from my brother or from my sister, and we had sort of similar experiences. But when we talk about things about childhood, it's interesting. They'll say, "No, it was different." So what I'm saying there in that hack is that our reality is composed of our experiences and our senses, um, and it's highly individualized. Which means the implication of that in terms of happiness, in terms of relationships, is that my reality is not superior over your reality, and that it's actually quite a humbling concept that we're basically all the same, limited by our senses, and our senses, as you know, are not perfect. So if we remember events that happened, let's say even one day ago, it will be different from what really happened if it was recorded. So there are 8 billion versions of reality. Well, I'm talking about subjective reality. That's different from objective reality as to what's really
Yeah.
happening.
We probably will never know what objective reality is actually, because as you mentioned, we are limited by our senses. And it's a very nice example for some birds, for example, or some insects. They have this, they can sense magnetic fields or infrared
Mm-hmm.
sector
Mm-hmm.
of light, and we cannot. So for them, reality is different than
Very
for
different.
us. And yes, and if we add all animals and all species, then it's multiverse of
Yeah.
trillions of realities, right? It's very
Yeah.
interesting to think about it. And we
And
are all converging in one spot. This is our current
mhm.
life, right?
And we're not even talking about, this is controversial. Are there other realms? Are there other multiverses that we're not really sensing? And occasionally there will be these intersections, and these are experiences described as paranormal or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I've had my own weird experiences growing up with what seem to be, non-human experiences, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
People might think I'm crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people had similar or some experiences that seem to be very crazy. And for me, the most bizarre, I mean, among others, is the following. So I met some people, let's say 10 years ago, right? And 5 years after I met these people, on a random day, nothing related to our meeting, I just thought about them in the context that we got to know each other.
Hmm.
And then in the same day, within minutes, I get a message from one of these people. Hey, I was thinking about this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell is going
Yeah.
on here? What is the chance? If we think about statistics, what is the chance that this is happening? It's just incredible. Yeah. I think Jung,
And
one of the psychologists, actually touched upon this collective unconscious and things that we're
yeah, I hear
interconnected.
about those things, but
Yeah.
uh, even in Buddhism, there's an aspect of Buddhism which I'm not very familiar with, but it's called cosmology,
Mm.
and they talk about these things,
Mm-hmm.
and that, yeah, there's a lot of things which our senses cannot perceive normally. But you talking about your friend actually happened to me yesterday. I have a good friend. Haven't seen him in probably almost a year. But I remembered him yesterday because I wore a jersey, like a woolen top that he gave me. His girlfriend made it for me, and it's really nice. So I thought about him like, oh, I haven't seen Matt in almost a year. He gave it to me before the start of the year, I think, middle of last year. And then in a few seconds, he messaged me.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had a few of those unusual things, and that happened to me
Yeah.
also last weekend. I was in a market, a farmer's market, And out of the blue, I thought, oh, I wonder how Vittorio is, as an Italian friend of mine who I saw in the market many months ago. And then in 5 seconds, Vittorio says, "Hey, Tony."
Yeah, it's.
I'm not sure. It might be a bias, psychological bias, but I don't know.
I mean, if you think from perspective of now, this is like huge speculation, guys. We're just talking here speculative stuff, but if you think about quantum entanglement and how things work
Mhm.
there, maybe there is something that governs this event and regulates it. I don't know, but
Yeah.
speculation. Let's leave it aside and
Yeah,
just enjoy.
that's not in the book. I don't talk about
Yes,
those things. I don't know
yes,
much about them.
yes, yes.
But I'm
Let's
open.
go.
I'm open to these things.
Yes, I mean everybody should be open. It's we don't want we science is the new religion, if you wish. We had religion in the past, we still have, but people were like dismissing everything else. Then eventually science, although science is with us for many thousands of years, but in the past hundreds, let's say, it's really hardcore measuring everything, etc. And this is kind of the new religion. Oh, whatever science says, it's true, but very often it's actually not accurate, or it's accurate just in this time and space, and in like 10 years maybe there will be new accuracy,
Yeah.
etc. So we
And it's
have to
still
be
very
open.
limited.
Exactly,
Science is
exactly,
very limited.
exactly. I can confirm that as a person who's seen quite a few labs now in the world, and yeah, it's quite interesting. But let's go back to the next hack, which I also loved a lot. Hack number 25. More valuable than material things, one of the most precious gifts we can offer to others is our presence.
Presence.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I can explain that. Um, as humans, we have a lot of needs to survive. Of course, there's the elements, the water, food, oxygen. But for us to feel meaningful, we get meaning from connection. From humans mostly, but sometimes we get it from animals. And we can give our presence to others, which actually fosters this connection. More important than giving your friends, I mean, of course, it's nice to give gifts and all of those things, but it's when you're present, when you're fully attentive to them, non judgmental, just present. In fact, in medicine, when we tell this to medical students, they don't get it. Young people will say, oh, as a doctor, we have to fix things. We have to solve things. And I tell them, well, a lot of times we can't. So what do we do? They feel very uncomfortable. If we can't fix them, what can we do? Well, your presence. What does that mean, presence? Nurses get it.
Yeah.
Nurses get it. Social workers get it. You just be there with the patient, present. You don't have to fix anything. If you can fix something, of course, that's great. But it's the presence that can mean so much for us. And I've had patients. We did the research project, interviewing people who were dying. So my guess is all of our subjects now have died. These are people with advanced cancer, severe medical problems, and they knew they will die in a few months. And I'm curious about happiness. Looking back in your life, we asked them, looking back in your life, what was the most important thing? And I've had CEO patients, and no one talked about work. No one talked about their money. No one talked about their PhDs. For us, when you're a PhD student, it's the most important thing. Um, all of them, I would no, not all of them. Most of them talked about presence of people who they love, who love them, but also even some of the nurses. Not a lot of doctors. Doctors were mentioned a few times, but nurses most of the time. Like just nurses who were just present and attentive to them and really were there. So when we die, before we die, that's what we remember. It's not what we've accumulated, not our stocks, not our Ferraris, our mansions, palaces, publications. No, no one talked about publications. Yeah, it's presence. And all of us can give it.
Yeah.
But it requires training. Particularly in our day and age where most of us are absent because of devices. I call devices as kidnappers of our attention. Most of us are glued to it, and it's sad. You see, you people in restaurants. You see young people. They get in and they're all on their phones. Presence is lost. They seem to be connected virtually, but our brains don't respond to that. Our brains, cue in to people who look at us and are just there. That's when we feel connected, and then we feel meaning. We get meaning.
Very, very beautiful summary, and I can relate to that also. And it's just different when you have your friends, your family, and you talk about something and share memories, create memories, and you will carry this for forever, as your patient actually described. And I remember, like some years ago, I was in Madrid, and at the time I went to a restaurant to have dinner, and I saw something very nice, a group of people, guys, friends, maybe middle-aged men. They had dinner, and I remember every one of them, when he arrived at the table, he took out his phone and put it somewhere at the edge of the table, and they piled all the phones over there so that they're sure nobody's looking at their phones, and they kind of had a very nice time together. So it's so hard. I mean, for us, we were lucky to grow up without phones, without internet even. I mean, I was when I was young, internet was kicking in, but still we were playing outside all the time. So we know what it is to have this human connection. And now with these new gadgets, it's a very addictive to constantly look and scroll and whatever. And we have kind of this mechanism to escape, but the youth that do not know this relationship, it's so hard. I could imagine they're constantly on these devices, as you said, attention stealer.
They're attention kidnappers or attention
Kidnappers.
hijack.
Exactly.
And they're designed to be like that. They're owned by big tech, the biggest companies in the world, and they've employed, I'm sure, psychologists and cognitive scientists. They know how to capture our attention. So it's hard to fight it. That's why it's really important to remember that these devices steal our presence, which is one of the most important resources that we have, that we can give to others, and actually to ourselves as well. Because when we're present with others, it's mutually beneficial. It's not just the other person who's benefiting. We benefit. And sometimes you don't even have to talk.
That's true.
You're just
Listening
there.
is a great power. Yeah.
Or sometimes not talking, and you're just there together, walking, or just sitting. I mean, it sounds weird, but yep, it happens.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I experienced this also with friends, partners. This is the level of connection that you feel comfortable to be together even when you're in silence, right?
Yep, even when there are gaps, you don't have to fill in the gaps. It's okay. You're together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Next hack, we move on. So this is something that is, I think, lacking in our society at the moment. It's hack number 27. Give generously, and you will feel better.
I've That's one thing which I really admire with a lot of traditional Buddhists, like in Asia or even here in New Zealand, people who grew up Buddhist. There, many of them, of course not all, many of them are just so generous. And I realize it's actually part of the culture. I remember one of the teachings of some of the monks who taught me that in many Buddhist countries, a lot of the young people actually don't meditate. They don't meditate, they learn teachings from the Buddha, but what they're always reminded is to be generous. Because, and now I can see the rationale. Because even if you're not meditating, doing all the Buddhist stuff, but if you're training yourself to be generous, and generosity is actually not that simple as just giving things. Giving presents for me is the most important type of generosity. That when we're generous, we're open-handed and we're grasping less. And if I were to summarize the main teaching of the Buddha, so the Buddha has, if you look at all of his teachings, there are 42 volumes. So a bookcase will be filled with his teachings. But if I were to summarize it in one sentence, his main teaching is not to grasp. Because we grasp at sensual experiences. A form of grasping is actually pushing away. If you don't like an experience, you push it away. So grasping and pushing away cause a lot of tension and suffering and discontentment. So he said, if I were to summarize everything, it is to not grasp. So meditation or mindfulness is actually a form of non-grasping. You have a thought, an impulse, you want to say something nasty, you notice. You don't grasp. You don't have to do it. So your reaction time actually becomes bigger. Instead of an impulse and then boom, you grasp or you fight, you notice. But that requires a lot of training, like meditation. However, generosity is a very subtle form of non-grasping. By being generous, you hold on to your possessions or even with your time less. You're just a little more open. It's a very smart way to non-grasping. So actually, when I look at all of the, not all, most of the practices of Buddhists, so there's meditation, there's generosity, there's harmlessness, there's living simply, there's compassion. All of them result in non-grasping. It's like in I'm not a physicist, but it's like is it a unified theory or something? Like there's just one thing that explains everything from the Buddhist lens. And that's grasping causes suffering and discontentment, and ungrasping causes a lot of peace. That's the summary.
Okay, guys, you don't need to go anywhere. That's it. This is the holy truth. We know everything now. No,
But it's actually very
joking.
subtle because it has different layers. We grasp at different things. We grasp at sensual experiences. We grasp at material things. We grasp at anything related to I, me, or mine, my reputation. This is my study. This is my thesis. This is my theory. And if someone challenges it, we get angry. It's because we're grasping.
Yeah.
And then we also like to grasp at certainty. It has to be like this. I have to control this. I have to control this relationship. I have to control this study. But there's so many variables that we don't have control over. So grasping doesn't make sense. Doesn't. Anyway,
Yeah,
and generosity is an antidote to grasping.
that's good. Oh, very nicely put. Generosity is an antidote to grasping.
To
Okay.
grasping, yeah.
But the thing is, um, when you say this stuff, they seem pretty simplistic, elegant,
It's
and
simple.
yes. The thing is that perhaps you've already, you've been to different spiritual places, monasteries, you practice this, and when you say this, from your experience, from your lens, it's already processed many times, experienced, relived, and I think you give a different meaning to what you're saying. And for a person who has no idea of this, he could hear, okay, grasping, what is this? But the depth that you have to perceive it and understand it in order to practice it takes time, and it's not trivial. It might seem okay, this is very easy, but in reality, it's not trivial at all. And yeah, this is sometimes when we have different spiritual teachings, and they say something which, on first, okay, what is this? But the people who or persons who wrote this down or summarized this is something that they experienced, relived, trained, practiced, and then they give it like this, already processed, and it's for them is something really to their core, and for us is still at the surface. Maybe if we devote ourselves, then we can eventually achieve, this kind of greatness. It's very
Actually,
interesting.
what you just said is very true, at least for my experience. So my first contact with the Buddha's teachings was, I think I mentioned 2004. So that's how how long ago was that? 22 years?
Yeah.
Is it, I'm not good with maths. Is it
Yeah,
22
22
years?
years. Yeah.
So it's been 22 years. And my realization that almost all of the practices we do is related to grasping was only 3 months ago.
Now, guys, you can make the, conclusions.
Three
Wow,
months ago.
incredible.
Because I'm going to present in a conference next week in the College of Psychiatry of Australia and New Zealand, and I'm presenting this workshop on Buddhist psychology beyond mindfulness. Because most of the time when people think of Buddhism, it's mindfulness, and I tell them, no, it's not. So I have to present the core teachings of Buddhist psychology to psychiatrists.
Hmm.
And then it dawned on me that the central thesis is grasping.
Yeah.
And I will make it real to them. We'll talk about, actually grasping. This is my favorite topic at the moment. Well, probably until I die, because I think it's the core teaching of the Buddha for awakening or for happiness or peace. I forgot now my train of thought. Anyway, I have a little bit of ADHD.
Uh, yeah, you were talking
No,
that you're gonna
I remember.
summarize it for the psychiatrist. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. And I do it to myself, all right? So the teaching of the Buddha is that grasping often results in tension, discontent, and suffering. So to reverse engineer that, every time I'm upset or every time I'm anxious or annoyed, I ask myself, instead of who's causing the annoyance or what's causing the annoyance, I ask myself, Tony, what are you grasping at?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Doesn't
then it
matter,
becomes
right?
clear.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm over time with the patient, that I'm anxious with time, so I'm like, I like being on time. And if sometimes patients are quite complicated, so instead of an hour and a half, we end up in 2 hours, and that causes me tension. And before I see the next patient, I'm already annoyed, and not at the patient, but because of my time management. And then I ask me, Tony, you're upset. You're anxious. Why? Because I'm grasping at the fact that my clinic should be on time. And what's the antidote? First of all, be aware. Tony, you're grasping. You're thinking of should. It should be like this. It must be like that. So when you hear those words in your head, you're grasping. So I'll reframe it to, it would be nice if you're on time all the time, but sometimes you can't. So that's loosening. I'm not giving up my standards of time management, but I'm loosening up. And then I can feel my shoulders, okay. And then I just tell the administration, the staff, just inform everyone else I'm running 15, 20 minutes late. And then,
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
It would be very interesting as a neuroscientist to look at the physiology behind this grasping.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe there are some experiments or some
I don't
fMRI
think
studies.
it will be
We
very interesting.
we have to do something about it.
Yeah, it will
Yeah.
be very interesting because I mean, not I'm not measuring stuff in myself, but being a little aware of my body, I know when I'm grasping. There's a sensation of a pit in my stomach. There's tension, and sometimes my posture, I can see like I'm leaning forward. So there are markers, biological markers, external biological markers that um, it's interesting because grasping has different forms. So an example of grasping is, I'm pretty okay. I'm not hungry. I don't need anything to eat. And then when I walk near the kitchen, I see the pantry, and then I remember there's a cookie there. So that's a stimulus. Stimulus. Stimulus in my mind. And the reaction in my mind is it's pleasant. And then I immediately jump into grasping. I have to have that cookie. And then I can sense my posture, it's now leaning towards the pantry. And then if I'm a little mindful, that's all right. You don't have to. It's okay. It's okay to have thoughts about cookies, but you don't have to eat it if you. And then there's a release, which is hard to describe, but it's a sense of I don't have to. I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm okay. So in fact, that feeling of I'm okay, it's not like, oh, I'm fantastic. But when I'm talking about my personal experience, when I ungrasp from certainty, from a thought, from it should be like this, and I loosen up, there's a sense that, Tony, you're okay. You're okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to get it. You don't have to fight for what's right. Because a subtle form of grasping is actually ideas.
Believe me, I
And
know
the
this.
sense of righteousness, we grasp at that.
Yeah. We had recently elections in my country, Bulgaria, and I'm right that some other things are wrong, and this is, oh my God. I want to convince others, and no. You know what? First of all, nothing will change, I'm pretty sure. And second of all, who are you, etc. Do your things, be healthy, whatever. I don't know. It's very painful. There should be something related to cortisol. I am pretty sure this change of the posture, this immediate reaction, something stress related should be.
Yeah, there's a sympathetic drive.
Yes,
Definitely, there's
yes.
a sympathetic drive.
Yes, it's interesting. This is very interesting for future experimental setup. Yeah.
That will be very nice. I will help with that with the writing, at least in the introduction bit.
Yeah. Awesome. We have now future collaborations coming on, guys. So
Well, I'll be very happy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. By the way, Tony is touring in Europe in the
Yes,
summer.
yes,
In
yes.
July, in August, he will be in different locations:
June and
England,
July, June and July.
June and
Yeah,
July, June and July,
yeah.
England, Amsterdam, Spain. So stay tuned to some other interesting events featuring him. Right? I guess on your website or somewhere. Where are they gonna be announced
No,
somewhere, or you
I'm
gonna?
not good with those things.
Okay.
That's my problem. I don't like promoting myself too much. I mean, part of me wants to promote, but part of me also wants to hold back because that's a form of grasping
Yeah, yeah,
for the identity of, oh, I'm good. Listen to me. That's a form of grasping. But I'll tell you something that I'm really grasping at the moment. It's a confession. It's I got formally invited yesterday to speak at the Formula One head office.
Hmm.
And for me, that's more exciting than speaking in Oxford or Cambridge.
Don't tell them this, okay?
Yeah, so I'm like, talk about grasping. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be the pinnacle. I don't think anything can beat that. But that's grasping. It might
Yeah,
not happen.
yeah,
Something might happen, or it might get canceled, or so I have to learn how to hold it lightly. It would be nice if my talk at the Formula One happens. If not, I'll be all right. I'm okay.
yeah.
I'll be okay.
Yes, that is the thing. We are going to be okay. All right, so let me go to the other hack that is also kind of super important nowadays in this over consumerism society that we live in. Hack number 45: know the difference between needs and wants.
Yeah, it's all related to grasping, really, because a lot of times I don't know who the monk who was the monk who told me or mentioned in the lecture that as a species we're a grasping species. We like to accumulate, we like to gather, we like to make sure our ideas are the ones that people listen to. Um, and in our consumerist society, there's so much bombardment of stuff that, oh, get this and you'll be happy, or you look good, or it will make your muscles get bigger, or you'll have nicer, puffier lips, beautiful skin. Um, I mean, they're all nice, but for a lot of people, there's that urgency. No, I need that. I really need that. Well, 10 seconds ago, you didn't. I mean, that's happened to me. Like, so I'm a little aware of myself too. I have this thing for watches. I've stopped. So now I have a cheap Garmin watch now. What lowest level? One
I
of the
think I
lowest
have the
level
same.
Garmin. Is it a
The
swim one? No,
Forerunner. No, no.
mine's cheaper.
Okay.
Mine's a swim too,
I see, I
which
see.
has which they've stopped producing it. Um, but there was a time I really loved watches, and when I started to earn as a doctor, as a junior doctor in the U.S., what you call a resident, for the first time I have income. It's like, oh my gosh, I actually have money, and I bought a Rolex.
Wow.
Like after, yeah, I was, like not a high end one, but a lower end one. But this was in the 19 what's this 92. It was 4,000 US dollars then. But it was an impulsive buy. I was walking in New York, and I love watches. I've always wanted to have nice watches, and I saw it. I went in and I bought it. Um, but when you really look into it, I didn't need it. It actually complicated my life because when I'm in the subway, I would cover my. I'm so scared I might get stabbed, or I eventually sold it to my sister. to give to her husband. And then I realized these things supposed to make us feel good actually complicates our lives. So I still have an urge to buy things, but I always tell myself, do you really need it? Or you just want it? And then I do a fast forward technique. Like, okay, let's imagine you already have that object. How do you feel now? Blah. Because the dopamine spike's gone. It's in the wanting and the thinking we need it. Our brains are pumping us with dopamine. It's exciting. And then the moment you have it, and then you go for the next spike. And we accumulate so much. And then you realize, gosh, what do I do with all of these things? But at that time, it was exciting. Of course, we're programmed to feel that.
Yeah.
Again, we're a grasping species for survival, but we really don't need all of this grasping all the time now.
Mm,
But we
mm.
think we need them.
Yeah. I remember now a story. I love stand-up comedy, and there was one of these stand-up comedy guys, very famous one. He told a story in one of the talk shows in the US. I don't remember which one, but the story was about the following. He loves spending a lot of money on clothes, and he's like meeting these people, and he's wearing this outfit that costs a lot of money. And at some point, he was like, nobody made me a compliment. Nobody appreciated it. And I was so, disappointed. Why is this possible? How? Yeah. And it's diminished basically the value of his happiness or whatever. And it's also interesting to think about that. Not only that you feel, but people on the outside, they don't care that much. What
Most
are
of
you
the time,
wearing?
yeah,
Yeah.
people are in their own minds with their own worries, with their own stuff. But at the same time, what that shows is that we want to be acknowledged. We
Exactly.
want to be noticed.
Hmm.
And that's a human need because we're a social species. We have to be liked and be part of the group. Otherwise, in the past, if we're not part of a group, that means death.
Yeah, that is totally true. Hmm.
Yeah, so
Um,
we're wired to want to be liked and to look good
hmm.
and to blend. All important for survival in the past, but not at this day and age.
Yeah, and all of this disappointment then cause a lot of psychological problems, right? Especially in people who are born different or cannot achieve certain goal or certain status, and it's very problematic. I mean, you probably know very well from your practice, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but guess
Um,
what? That's all related to grasping as well.
of course, of course, of course. I know. I now see your point. I now see your point.
You're grasping at this is how people should view me.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
grasping at this is what I should be achieving.
Hmm.
And then it actually they don't deliver. They deliver temporarily,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
the cost can be huge.
Unfortunately, it can be huge. Tony, I mean, I can talk to you, I think, for many hours, but I don't know who is going to listen to us. Before we wrap up, I'd like you to elaborate on two concepts. One you mentioned, it's mindfulness, and the other one is compassion. I think these are two important things that people need to be aware of, and I think you're the right person to give us kind of introduction in this
Yeah,
domains.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
I remember when I started to learn these practices, mindfulness and compassion. There are compassion practices in Buddhism. Again, that was 2004. And one of our teachers there at the Auckland Buddhist Center, she described it as the wings of a dove in terms of spiritual development. The two wings is one is mindfulness and the other one is compassion. For you to soar or for you to develop your mind for peace and happiness and contentment. Those are the two most important things. I think I think it's actually grasping and ungrasping, but anyway. So what's mindfulness? Mindfulness is a way of living, but to make it simple, I'll tell you what we normally do. Okay, when we're not mindful, we normally focus on overthink about the future, which causes anxiety. We're grasping at certainty. And many of us will ruminate about the past. And you might be having a nice meal. Like I can see this with my friends, right? Having a nice meal. I'm a foodie. And we're having this beautiful meal. And guess what we're talking about? We're talking about our next meal.
Mm.
Or what we had last time. But that's a human mind. It's rarely present. And when we're not present, it often causes a lot of tension. There's the overthinking, the rumination, all the hypothetical scenarios, and we actually are not really living because time is passing by, experiences are passing by, and we really don't appreciate it. Also, the phone is a big cause of not being present. So, what's mindfulness? Mindfulness is a state of mind where the attention is in the present. So if I'm mindful at the moment, I'm fully present, I'm seeing you in my screen, and I'm aware of what I'm saying, and my mind is not about the future or what are people thinking about this podcast or what if I make a mistake. So being present, my attention in the now, which is actually hard to do. Hard to do. So there are practices that we train the mind to be mindful. And one of the most commonly used practice is mindfulness of the breath. The Buddha, again, I'm raving about how smart he is. He could have chosen a lot of objects. He could have chosen look outside, look at the tree, or we use those techniques as well. But his favorite is the breath. Why? Because the breath is subtle. Okay, so it's not screaming at us. We need to have a little bit of attention to notice it, to feel it. In fact, I prefer to feel it, feeling the breath coming in, breath coming out, breath coming in, and feeling the whole body moving with it. And when we do that mindful practice for beginners, when I was teaching this to prisoners, I would start with one breath. But if you go to meditation centers, they'll tell you to do that for 1 hour. It will drive you nuts. So I like doing one breath, two breaths, or 1 minute. And then when we're paying attention to the breath coming in and out, guess what happens? The mind starts, oof, this is boring. So that's a narrative. Or, oh, I wonder what they're doing at home. Are they having dinner now? So now we're thinking about fantasies or the future. Or we get distracted by the phone. So when we get distracted, the technique is you just notice. Oh, I'm distracted. So not a lot of commentary. Or you're such an idiot. You can't even freaking focus on the breath. You're a failure. So from a mindful perspective, you just notice that narrative. I'm having a self-criticism episode. And then you shift the attention to the breath. So what essentially happens in the practice of mindfulness is we get presented with all sorts of stimuli. External, phone, internal thoughts, body itching. And it happens, we get distracted, we notice, we bring it back to the breath. It's very simple. But you can imagine if you do this every day, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes every day, what we develop is a mind that's present. And of course, it can get distracted. But when it gets distracted, or when there are strong emotions, when something annoying is happening, we notice. And then we go back to baseline instead of reacting. So mindfulness allows us to have that little space of awareness that, no, you don't have to react. You don't have to punch that guy. You don't have to insist in your self-righteous thoughts about politics. But it's not actually, there's no judging. It's not like, you're such an idiot. Oh, you're evil having those sexual thoughts. Nothing. You have sexual thoughts? You have sexual thoughts. You notice. But it's up to you if you want to entertain it, or you just view it as, these are just normal impulses. I'll go back to what I'm doing. I'm typing up my report.
Yeah.
So mindfulness sounds simple, but also requires a lot of practice. And what happens is that when we're mindful, we notice when we're grasping. I have to bring it back to grasping.
Man, you have a lot of work to, present every aspect and then converge it to grasping in your during your presentations, talks. It's
Yeah,
gonna be very
I've already
interesting. Yeah,
mapped it out how to do it.
yeah,
Hopefully
yeah,
it goes well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be fun, I'm sure. I'm sure. And what
And then
about
you were asking
compassion?
about compassion. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
That's a big one. We need another session.
Another session. I'd love to
Yeah,
actually.
my PhD is in compassion.
That's very interesting. I saw that and I was very surprising. What kind of is it in university or
Yeah, yeah.
what is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a Buddhist school. It's
Yeah. I don't know. I don't
University
know.
of it's at the University of Auckland. So
Okay.
what happened was, again, going back to 2004, so I was doing this meditation course at the community. It's a Buddhist center in the neighborhood. So the first few weeks, we focused on mindfulness practice. We have to do it as best as possible every day. Um, and what I noticed with mindfulness practice is after 2 or 3 months, that's when I noticed there's a little space. When something annoying happens, I can see, instead of reacting majorly, I catch myself. And actually, what happened was I was driving down the motorway, highway, and then there's this car that just cut in front of me. In the past, I'll get angry. I won't chase them, but I'll be curious. Who was that guy? And I don't give finger gestures, but of course there's that impulse. But after 2 or 3 months of mindfulness practice, just mindfulness of the breath, not major, like probably 10, 15 minutes most days. After 2 or 3 months, this guy cut in front of me. And what happened was, I just noticed it. Oh, there's a guy who cut in front of you. And I was thinking, oh, sheesh, that's different. And then the following thought was, I hope he doesn't get into an accident. And for me was like, wow, where did that come from? So that's when I realized, oh, mindfulness actually is starting to work. That's 2 or 3 months. And then we also did a compassion training. Okay, compassion training in the Buddhist practice, Buddhist tradition is, we have a meditation called metta meditation, where we would imagine. So it's a different type of meditation. It's not breath. It's a lot of visualization. I'll imagine a person who cared for me. So I would typically use my mom. And then a person who I love, so my partner or a good friend. And then the third person would be a neutral person, someone who I don't have any feelings towards, positive or negative. The fourth person is someone who just slightly annoys you, or me. And then the fifth person, the fifth object would be the whole of humanity, and actually all the creatures in the universe. So what we do is wish them happiness, wish them to be free from suffering. So I'll start with my mom. For a few minutes, I'll imagine her in front of me and I'll wish, Mom, may you be free from suffering. And sometimes I'll make it specific. I hope you sleep well. I know you have pain. May it be better. Just a few minutes. And then I move on to the person I love, and then the someone who's neutral, like the barista. And then it gets a little difficult with the annoying one. So we were instructed not to use politicians in number 4. Because that will destroy our meditation, because we're beginners, we're padawans, we're not Jedis yet. So don't use politicians, because anger will overcome the well-wishing. And then the fifth is imagining the neighborhood, the country. And I was thinking, this is stupid. But, I'm a scientist. Like, give it a go for a few months. Give it a go. It's painful because I'm not good in visualization. I actually have visuospatial deficits. Like, if you give me a map, I have to stand in a certain way before I can orient myself. And if you twist the map, I'm lost. So I have issues with visualization. But what happened after a few months, I actually decided, no, this is stupid. Nothing's happening. I know mindfulness works, at least, but this one doesn't do anything. And one morning, it's in the book, I think. One morning, I woke up with lots of ants on the kitchen bench. Whereas in the past, I would happily cause genocide. No caring at all. Like, these are pests. I hate them. I'll either use, a spray or use my fist. But after a few months of doing metta meditation or compassion meditation, loving kindness meditation, I was just looking at them and actually felt sad that other people would probably just kill them. So I just looked at them, and then I remember I can't kill them, not because of fear of repercussions of bad karma, or I'll go to hell, or I'll be reincarnated as an ant. No, nothing like. It's just there's this other creatures who were just trying to survive. So I remember these things are actually talked in Buddhist circles. So what you can do. So the key instruction is, just clean around the ants, take away the crumbs, and they will go away. And they did. Of course, it becomes problematic once there's massive infestation. It becomes a big issue in Buddhist communities at what to do. So going back to compassion is a mind state where we know and I don't like to use the word believe. We're aware that there's suffering and that there's an urge for us to help. Sometimes we can't. Many times we can't help. Like what's happening in the Middle East, we can't. But to be aware that other people are suffering, and even just wishing, may they be free from suffering, may there be changes. So compassion is awareness that other people, other animals, other creatures have issues, are not in peace, are anxious. And then there's an urge for us to want to help, or at least wish them relief. So that's compassion, which is one stage further from empathy. Empathy is when I know that the other person is actually feeling she's in pain or she's sad, and then I can also feel the sadness, or cognitively it resonates with me that she's sad. That's empathy. Compassion is empathy. I know she's suffering, or I know she's not in peace, but there's an urge or a desire to make it better for them. And I think one of the ways to develop it, apart from compassion meditation, is to train the mind to see that we're all very similar. Because as humans, probably part of evolution and wanting to survive is when we see people who are different in terms of looks, accent, attire, smell, hairstyle, the impulse is, I don't want to be close to them, which is, I think, natural and protective. But we can train ourselves to think that, oh yeah, they look different in a lot of ways, but we basically want the same stuff, which is we want to live in peace. We want to feel secure. We want to have food, water, shelter. We want our family to be safe. We don't want to be attacked. We're all the same. And when we're in that mind space, passion flows. You don't have to think, oh, God told me or Jesus told me I have to be compassionate. It won't even go there. It's not even cognitive. It's just a connection that, no, we're all the same. We're all the same. And when we think like that, it's automatic, like to want to help, to make it a little easier for them. It doesn't have to be grand gestures, but it can be as simple as opening the door for someone or letting someone merge in traffic. These are little acts. And again, the end result of that, apart from making you feel connected, making you feel at peace, is there's less grasping for us. It's open, like we're all in the same shit, pardon me for saying that. We're all living in this really complicated life, and it's not easy to be human. So anyway, so that's compassion. I didn't talk about my PhD still, but
Compassion in a nutshell. I must say, what a lovely summary of mindfulness and compassion. I feel blessed that we have this podcast, but for me, it's like a personal teaching, one on one. It's just remarkable. And thank you for your presence, Tony, and for your time. And I just want to add, in terms of, you said we feel connected. I mean, we are. You said we are connected. We truly are connected, not only with our desires and wanting to be in peace, protected, etc., but again, if we look at the current scientific knowledge, the universe emerged from one spot. So if you put things into perspective, we all emerge from the same place, and we are basically based on the same carbon oxygen based molecules, and only the organization is a little bit different and makes us feel different, but at the end we are the same thing, which is born and is going to die, and in between we decide how are we going to live, in peace or not with ourselves. And Tony, really, as I said, I feel extremely lucky to be able to talk to people like you and others that who are extremely smart, knowledgeable, and in your case, full of compassion, mindful. And thank you very much for your time. We agreed after our short break we will do it like half an hour, but we are now 1 hour into it, and I
must have
still
been an
feel
hour.
like, yeah, it's time flies so fast, and it's incredible. You're incredible communicator, and your book is very nice. And people, if you want to read more about Tony, his life hacks and Buddhism, this book, once again, I will show it. life hacks from the Buddha. It's very nice start to enter the field. And Tony mentioned last time that he is on a project to write a second book. I don't want to spoil
Yeah.
anything,
No,
but
yeah, it's so the publishers were really happy. Of course, it's a lot of it's about money. The
yeah.
publishers were really happy with the first book, and then they said, we want a second book. And I'm probably 70% finished. And it's interesting, my last two chapters were on relationships
Mm,
from a Buddhist lens.
yeah.
And it's enriched my own relationship because I'm more conscious of these little acts of kindness, compassion, um, which actually helps us. A lot of it's also ungrasping in relationships because we always have this sense of I'm right, you're wrong, and then you have a fight, and then you realize, well, what's actually more important? Is it the grasping on this on what's right or our relationship? So and I'm actually sending that chapter to a few people who have issues with relationships and patience, and they like it because it's pretty basic. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's a small plug for, but I'm not grasping. It might not happen.
yeah.
I have a contract, but
Who
things will
knows? Who
change.
knows? Yes, yes.
Hold it
Well, people,
lightly.
yes, hold it lightly. Stay tuned, and
It's
maybe we will
called
have
chill. So
another
we have a title already.
chill.
It's chill like the Buddha.
Yeah. Oh, okay, okay. This is very cool title, by
Because
the
the
way.
Buddha's actually, in a lot of the texts, the Buddhist texts, he used a lot of description of being chilled, being cool.
Hmm.
Because anger is heat, and a peaceful mind is actually, it's cool.
Mm.
So I think so he's the OG of coolness.
I think this will resonate with a lot of young people nowadays. This cool, chill concept is
And
very
OG,
nice.
it's
Yeah,
a very
yeah.
millennial term, OG. You know what OG is? I'm guessing so.
What is it? Original gangster or what? What is it?
Yeah, original
Yeah,
gangster.
yeah, yeah.
So the Buddha is the OG of coolness.
Yeah.
Like it's
Awesome.
okay.
Yeah,
Chill.
yeah.
Chill.
It's okay. It's okay. Tony, thank you very much for your time and for incredible insights during our discussion. I had a great time, and I don't know if we managed to meet in person somewhere in
Who
Europe,
knows?
but who
Yeah,
knows? Maybe in the
we'll
future.
connect. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'll be flexible in some of the times, and one potential crossover is Barcelona.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Let's see. Let's see if we make
we'll
it work.
communicate. See what happens. We no grasping.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye, Svill.
Bye.